The ugly truth behind right to work. Right to work has many forms. Over the last few weeks, we have rolled out the origins of right to work. And we've been really shocked by the reaction from the members who have been stunned from this information. And as a result of demand, the members have asked for us to roll out a PowerPoint and video so that we can explain this information as it's been vetted from numerous sources. The birth of the idea came in 1941 from William Ruggles. The amazing thing is that the propaganda sent out was a twist on discriminatory practices. It was actually claiming that unions were being discriminatory when really the origins of right to work were really based in discrimination and racial divide among working people. The individual leading the cause was Vance Muse. This individual lobbied and led the effort behind right to work and its origins. He was doing the work of plantation owners and southern industrialists, and he used this vehicle to suppress wages. This individual was clearly racist, used bigotry, divisiveness, and racist rhetoric to divide workers and to try to prevent people from coming together for common good. After its inception through the 1940s, right to work rolls through many of the segregated southern states from 1944 until 1948. Immediately after right to work begins, the civil rights movement rises because of millions of people seeing the injustices that others are going through. Unions, Martin Luther King, and the civil rights movement worked hand in hand, side by side, to fight back against this movement of segregation, of a lack of equality in jobs and what people were paid. As a matter of fact, Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, the famous I Have a Dream speech, was at a march on Washington for jobs and freedom. Many people today don't know the original name of that march, and it was a march on Washington for jobs and freedom. Obviously, Martin Luther King led that march, and his famous I Have a Dream speech came out of that march. So let's take a moment and look at the evolution of right to work. If you look back over 100 years, and many people know what Jim Crow laws mean and what that whole era did, you now have to take a minute to look at the John Birch Society. One of the founders, Fred Koch, led this organization, led its foundation, as well as led the anti-civil rights campaign behind the John Birch Society. They were extremely opposed to the civil rights movement. Now, today, many people know of the Koch family and the individuals that have billions and billions of dollars that are funding the super wealthy organizations that are once again holding down workers, called ALEC. It's called the American Legislative Exchange Council. So if you look at the evolution of right to work, you can see how the Jim Crow laws, the John Birch Society, and now ALEC were all really doing the same thing. It just have a different name depending on the era. This map clearly lays out what's happened in the last 40 to 50 years. And as union density has fallen, so have the amount of people who have pensions, the amount of people who have good health care paid by their employer, the amount of people that can retire in dignity at a certain time, and real wages, as union density have declined, has also declined for all of working people across America. So what does right to work mean? Well, with all the research being done, we found that there's nothing positive from right to work. That when it comes from a worker's perspective, you cannot actually find any tangible evidence of good statistical data that somehow right to work has benefited workers. Wages are 22% lower in right to work states. The poverty rate is higher in right to work states. Individuals covered by health benefits, actually far less, 21% less in right to work states. The amazing and most shocking statistic is 49% higher rate of deaths on the job if you're in a right to work state. There are many other statistics that you can look up and see how, if you're a worker and you currently live in a right to work state, how you're negatively impacted by the end result of it becoming right to work. Since 2010, many states have gone right to work. Indiana, Michigan, Wisconsin, West Virginia, Kentucky, Missouri. Who's going to be next? And what does this mean? So if you go back to the 1940s and you look at plantation owners and Southern industrialists and what was corporate America of the time, they used their money and Vance Muse to fight for right to work laws in all of these states. Now, fast forward to the 2010s, multinational corporations have utilized a vehicle called ALEC, and now you see a resurgence of right to work. And many of ALEC's platform ideas and the things in which they're sending to local governments is to create pension reform. Pension reform means less pension. The private sector at one time, when union density was high, the vast majority of workers had a pension provided by their employer. Now today, in the private sector, only a small percentage of people have a pension provided by their employer. What are these people going to do when they go to retire? Corporate interests have wiped out pension plans for the American worker in the private sector. And now they have their sights set on the public sector. Pensions in the public sector are the last bucket of money, of tax money, for these corporate interests to try to drain from. It isn't enough that they haven't gotten their abatements, their subsidies, their tax credits, their infrastructure breaks, their sales tax refunds. It's amazing the billions of dollars that are sucked out of all local economies and given back to these corporate interests while they don't even produce good jobs. So pension reform is the next phase. That's what the future of right to work is going to bring. Because if unions are weak and they don't have the resources to fight, then that means corporate interests will obviously build up a fight to take that money right out of working people's pockets. The stark reality is more workers becoming union over the course of time is what will turn back the clock. More workers organizing obviously creates a situation where more people will earn better wages, more people will have better medical benefits, more people will have to pay less for their medical benefits, more people will have rights and a voice on the job. There will be more laws on the books to protect workers' rights. And ultimately, we all want to get to retirement at a certain point. There will be more people that will be able to get to retirement earlier and be able to retire in dignity. So ultimately organizing is what solves the problem nationally. In the short time, we still have to deal with these issues that we're faced with. So this begs the question, what side are you on? Are you on the side of Vance Muse and the origins of right to work? Or are you on the side of Martin Luther King and his fight against right to work and for civil rights? Ask yourself that question. Ask your coworker that question. Ask your friend that question.